Hi, Townstar friends. It's Neil Walters of neilsvideos.com. Today, I want to show you a great tool for designing your Townstar city or town build. It's on this website. I'll put the URL up there bigger. And of course, I can't guarantee this site will be there tomorrow, but it looks pretty good. I've seen a few other people use it on their YouTube videos. And I would just want to talk about it and show you how to use it basically. And then we'll talk about refineries specifically, how to use this tool for designing your refinery complex. So just a few basics of the tool. There's really no manual or anything. It's just like play by learning, right? So that's why people like me can make videos. What you do is you click over here what you want to build. Like say you want to have, let's go to the farm stuff. So let's say you want to add some wheat fields. You click on the wheat field there, and then you just click a square over here. And you just, as long as you keep clicking it, you're adding wheat fields. And you see it's a little slow sometimes. Sometimes you have to click it and wait maybe 1 to 2 seconds. Okay. If you want to get rid of one of those, you just like the game, you click the bomb, and then you click the bomb on there. But of course, there's no game going on here. This is just a design tool, and they did a wonderful job, really. Now, one thing I noticed, like here, notice I put in 3 or 4 wheat fields right in the middle. Now, let's say you say, oh, I don't want to build in the forest north. I want to build in the desert. Okay, so you go to desert, and then there's the desert screen, and you say, no, I want to go back to my forest. So now you go back to forest, and what you did is gone, right? So at the bottom, I noticed they have copy, name, and clear. And so what I believe how this works, let me just show you. Let's put a silo here. Let's just put a bunch of wheat fields. You can click ahead like that. And I think it'll buffer them up and do them as fast as it can. Oh, yeah, boom, and there they all are. Well, that's cool too. It looks like if you click on one that's there, it just goes away. You don't have to use the bomb symbol. Now, when you click on something too, what's cool is over here on the left, they have like a little database and they show you how fast the wheat grows. And you can see there's 4 stages of wheat growth, 4 speeds. Green, there's like a yellow, an orange, and a red. And that has to do, of course, with your shade from your buildings and such. So I'm just curious, but they don't tell you. It'd be nice if they told you, but like if I put a wheat field up here by the silo, see, it doesn't tell me what the actual speed of that wheat would be. You just have to know that by doing your own counts, which is a whole nother video to teach on that. So here's how this works. Barely, I noticed down here, this is, since I'm a computer guy, this is JSON over here. And so every time you build and add something to your city, I believe what they're doing is they're building this little JSON over here. And it's not big enough to read, but if you basically use the keys, I do a shift N and then copy, okay? And then I'm going to go open a notepad program. You can use the notepad that comes with Windows, but I like Notepad++. So here is a screen, and I'm just going to do Control N. We'll make a new version, a new window, and then I'm going to do paste. And there you can see all the JSON for that city. Okay. And just to show you then we can actually restore it, let's say we go to Forest South, which is a slightly different layout, or different orientation anyway. Now we go back to North, and everything we did is gone. And now we go back over here to Notepad, do Control A, Control C, and then come back here, paste it in this little box here, and then do load. Voila, get it back. So notice there is no file save on here. You're going to have to just copy that JSON to your own computer and save it yourself. So once you get it in your Notepad over here, you can just do File, Save As, and save it in your My Documents folder or wherever you like to save things on your disk drive or cloud or whatever. Now, if you want to know an advanced trick in Notepad++, they have these little plugins, and they actually have a pretty good administrator screen here. If you go to Plugins Admin, you can search for a JSON. And I think it's not showing up here for me because I've already installed it. But if you see something about JSON on here, I believe there's 2 utilities. You can install them both. and then it basically installs them. It'll close Notepad++ and then reopen it, and the utilities will be there. So to run them, you go up here to plugins, and then see the two tools. One's called JS tool, and the other one's called JSON viewer. And they both have a format command. So if I come over here and say format JSON, oh, look at that. See, it's 778 lines long. And now it's a little more readable. It's still cryptic if you don't know computers at all, but that gives me a pretty good idea of what he's doing here. The only thing it doesn't show you is his grid structure. He probably just does like 1 through 20. I bet he just numbers the grids probably left to right, and so on down the screen. But anyway, and then you see all you see is really the word type: tree, grass, dirt, road, whatever. What he doesn't show you then is where that would fit on the map. But anyway, that's how JSON works. So that's an optional tool you can use if you want to save what you've done on this program here. Now, this program doesn't do enforcement of certain things like here. Like if I picked a silo, let's say I put it out here. It does draw a circle around it, meaning I believe that you don't have a road. So you can go over here, and you can put a road next to it. Yep, and the circle went away. Very similar to the game. If you actually delete a road in front of like a silo, it'll draw these little rings around it and indicates that it's not functional while you're rebuilding that road. So what I want to do is just clear off a little corner down here to work with. So I'm basically just going to click each of these squares. Oh, no. Not what I wanted. Let me click the bomb. Oh, that's what happens. It remembers the last thing you did. So I think now if I click the bomb, I can now apply the bomb over and over. Yep, that's how that works. Clicking ahead, getting ahead of the computer here. I'll pause. Oh, there it goes. See, it's just catching up with me there. Of course, in the real game, you can't do that fast. It takes hours to do that, and it takes lots of money, right? In-game money to do what I just did. So now we want to build a refinery, or what guess I would call an industrial complex. The first part of the game, your goal is to build at least one refinery. And then as you get a little smarter, you usually want 2 refineries, and then you want to have power plants to power them. And usually you want 2 power plants by your gas one, and at least 1 by your petroleum refinery. Okay. So what we're going to do is, what I do is I watch other people's videos on YouTube, and I use a program also called Snagit, and I save the picture. I've actually just kind of like highlight the picture on the screen, and it captures it and saves it. I could save it to disk, and that's the other alternative to using Snagit. Windows actually has a program called Snippet or Draw and Sketch or something like that. You can also drag anywhere on the screen, capture the picture, and then you just have to do File Save As and save it to disk, and then give it a name like Townstar underscore or dash refinery dash layout, and save it somewhere where then later you can say, okay, now I want to find all my programs having to do with or all my picture files having to do with Townstar or with refineries or whatever. So I use tags in this program, which kind of does the same thing. And I could also save them to disk. But anyway, so here's what I've got. So I typed in refinery up here, and these are some of the different images that are coming up. And so here are some that I've captured from different people. Sometimes I'll put the name of the video that it came from, and then sometimes I don't. Let me see if I can find a good one. Here's one called PowerPlants. Okay. Sometimes they're my own games too. This is what oil says. You'll practice. Okay, Lycan Warlord YouTube video. That tells you that's a guy on YouTube, and we could look at his as an example. Okay, so this is a pretty cool little layout. And you can see he put his paved road 1 square away from the border. You really never want a road on the border. That would be kind of wasteful. And so he puts his pump jacks over here, or crude oil pumps, I think they call them. And that way you're protecting, you don't want your crops see anywhere near your industrial stuff because that will cause pollution on them. And also your animals don't like being next to them. So you need a little buffer space. So when you're early in the game like this, build your farm stuff on like one side of your town and build your industrial stuff on the other side of the town. And that's why on this demo, I just kind of picked a corner down here. And of course, in the real world, sometimes you're trying to save money at first. And so you try to build next to a pond that's already there. And that's a good approach too. Let's just talk about what he's got here. He's got two water pumps, okay? And the reason you need a water pump is the power plant has to be immediately next to a water pump. Now, the water will also give water to the refineries as well, but they don't have to be next to it. And I think they just get 1 unit of water, even if it's diagonal. He has his lumberjack house here, or sorry, not his lumberjack, his wood mill, the wood mill house. Sorry, it's called the lumber mill. I'm just trying to remember the right terms. A lumber mill is what basically takes the wood and turns it into lumber, and that needs water and electricity. So see, by building it next, or at least diagonal to the power plant, it's going to get all the electricity it needs from there. And by having it next to the water pump, it's going to get all the water it needs from there. Now, if you're doing a more complex design where you want 3 or 4 lumber mills or more power plants, that's especially when this tool over here would come in handy. So you can plot the whole thing out before you actually begin. So this is one, and before I start using it on this tool, I'm going to go back and look and see if I can find maybe a more complex one than this one. Like I said, someone said it, I kind of do my videos lifestyle. I don't actually have a specific one planned ahead of time. Okay, here's an interesting one. Looks like I got this off of a website. And let's center it here. Now they use, I think this is a haunted mansion or haunted hotel or something like that. That gives free crude oil to the refineries, okay? So they don't have to have any pump jacks in their scenario. So that's not one we don't want to use because we don't have that NFT, right? But you can see they have a very powerful complex here. And I think this, it's obviously a uniform game because they have all these little fabric plants here around it. So that looks like a really cool design. Again, you have 2 water pumps around one water. That's similar. And here they actually have 4 refineries and 1, 2, 3, 4 power plants. And then the power would be giving power to these 3 lumber mills and then power across the street to all these houses, at least the ones right across the street. The question then is, will the power reach 2 over? I think it goes up to 3 away. I think it'll give 1 unit of power even this far away. So that is a really cool design. And one other point is, like, see, if you built your power plant like that first one we did right here by the road, it's very expensive to try to move it later, right? So it's like once you put these expensive items in your game, you don't want to really be moving them around because you have to destroy them and put them somewhere else, and that costs lots of money, and that obviously would not make you as competitive. So if you know the direction you're headed, you would build them something like this from the beginning. Okay, here's another one. You can see we're giving credit to Satoshi Gaming for this. I don't know if it was a website or a YouTube channel. And see how he has his oil pumps here. He went for 3 fuel tanks, which I've never used more than 2. I could see there's a few times that might be handy. And see his design. The common thing you see in all these is the 2 water pumps on both sides of the water. So why does he need 2 though? In this case, by putting these like this, I guess for the lumber mill, and then he still has room here to build one other thing in the future. So he's probably planning ahead for whatever comes next. And so again, we have 2 refineries. One's usually going to be petroleum, one's going to be gas. The gas one will need 6 energy, so you want it by 2 refineries. The other one only needs, I think, 3 energy. So usually it's good enough to have it next to one power plant, I meant to say a while ago. This one needs to be next to a power plant. But the scenario they've got it set up here is, I believe you could create gasoline in either one of those. So right here you have the new candy stores, and they need energy as well. So they're getting energy from both power plants. So by separating the power plants across the water pump, it kind of spreads them a little bit further out and can help more other types of buildings. And then, of course, over here, he's got his storehouses. No, what's the right word? The industrial warehouse, I think is what it's called, where your batteries and your water goes. And that needs to be as close as possible to these items as well. So you see, he had to, obviously, probably know this already. You have to have the paved road next to your refineries and power plants. But you don't need it next to a lumber mill. What else can we learn about this? Oh, that's interesting. See his border over here? I'm guessing this is the edge of his town. And then he has 2 rows of crops, and then he put ponds all the way across. And somewhere I read that if your ponds go from one border of your town to the other, then all your farmers and everybody just walks across them like they're not there. But if you have just like one square missing, they're going to walk to the missing square and cut across there. So that's a technique I've seen in a few videos that I've watched. I like this one. This may be the winner here. And this is another common pattern where you have power plant, refinery. Oftentimes it's another power plant, then the refinery. But again, in this case, probably because of the water pumps, that's why he did it this way. But he had seems like an extra water pump here. Yeah, I think this guy overdid his water pumps a little bit. Like he doesn't need one over here by the silos, but maybe he's again planning to build more in the future. I think this is a town I built following Lycan Warlord's setup, where it basically built it all on a little street over here with the water pumps on the side. Or maybe this was his. I don't know. It's hard to remember at this point. But here's another thing. I guess one thing this chart over here will not show is the order to build things. So see, like in this case, I built the refineries first because they're only 15,000 and the power plant is 100,000. So immediately, if you have enough, like for instance, at the beginning of the game, you can put like 5 windmills up, or five wind turbines, they're called, and then you can get the energy you need to build both petroleum and gas. You might even need more couple of windmills, but that's a good way to get started. And then you come back later and put your power plants in. But there's one of those darn rocks there, right? So at the beginning of the game, you don't have enough money to get rid of the rocks. So again, that's where you run the auto sell script and let it run for an hour or two or something, and then come back, and then maybe you'll have enough money. I think this is another one of my games where I more or less followed that model. And this one, I noticed that the pond and the water pumps are right by the border of the city, and the road is over here. So if you know ahead of time, like where you want your roads, that would make a big difference too. Because sometimes my strategy is to put the roads on the second square around the board, and I can make kind of like a loop around the town that way. But if you have one over here, 3 rows, and then over here you have 2, then you have these little elbow shapes to connect them. So now I'm going to take this picture here, and I'm going to try to implement it on this tool that we discovered and just plot it out. So we're going to see here we have 2 green things on the side. That also gives you separation from I don't know what he's going to do in the future, because again, you don't want your crops by these things here. So I assume he was going to put crops down here in the future. But the first one he builds are up here, and then they're going to grow fast and green. But down here, you'd have to count if this pollution travels over here, those crops will be a little bit slower. So you'd probably build the border first and then this little section last, and that gets back to the compromises you have to make in the game. Can't do it all. Again, let me move this over here. So let's say we're going to put a couple of fuel pumps. So go over here, we're going to click Industrial, find a fuel pump, and then we look at the picture again. And I'm going to say that's 4 spaces over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he has one here and one here. And that's telling us, of course, we're going to need a road. So let's put in some roads here. Actually, in the real game, too, I'll try to build by dirt roads sometimes since they're cheaper and kind of get an idea of where I'm going. Now see there, I just messed up. That needs to be 3 and 4 and 5, not 2 and 3 and 4. So see here, we're going to have just, let's go ahead and put a crop in there just to get an idea of the future. Okay. So let's say at the end of the game, he's got wheat or something growing here. And he has a pond separating everything. Pond would be here under the train, the roads. There's your ponds. Now he has a road after the pond. So we're going to click the bomb thing here and get rid of. I don't think there's a drag and drop on here. If it is, that'd be a nice feature, but I don't know if he has that. So now he's got some kind of a road here. Okay, before I have to do it twice, which kind of road is it? So he has a flat road, a dirt road here and here. It'd be nice if he lets you overlay something without having to hit the bomb first. That's cool. Okay, and let's go back to fuel tanks. I think 3 is too many. And he's got one here. I'm going to blow away this one. Then we're going to have some pump jacks. I'm just going to keep doing this. This part might be a little boring, but I'll go ahead and video it, include it. Now we need our dirt or our paved roads. Let's get this little square built. So we have 1, 2, 3. See, that's what I'm saying. If you don't plan it out, look how much waste you'd have in your actual game, right? Even when you plan it out, it's actually kind of sophisticated, right? So once you have a road there, you need 3 spaces before the next road. Your next road would be like over here. I'm just going to use paved roads just because I've got them right now. Okay. So now in between there, we have a 3 by 4 square. And we need a pond there. And then a water pump, which should be under industrial. Where do we put that? On both sides of the pond. So here and here. That's the middle of your little industrial district, let's call it. And then now we need our lumber mill. These little icons. Yeah, if you're not sure what they are, if you put your cursor over it and leave it for a second, that's called a tooltip, or mouse over a tooltip. It pops up. You want your lumber mill here, so it gets the water. And now we have our 2 refineries. Then we have our 2 power plants. And then on top of that, we have 3 whatevers. Something that needs power and or water. So actually, see, those could be 3 lumber mills, could be 3 fabric plants. Let's go ahead and use fabric plants. So see, that's where I deviated from this, guys. That's where you have to make your own. If you're building uniforms, you're going to need fabric plants in your game, right? And now we need to wrap our road around that. So we'll go back to, let's just use a dirt road. You could leave, so I put my fabric plants here. You could leave this square just blank or green, or you could put a placeholder there like this Christmas tree or something. It's kind of out of the ordinary. Must have been some NFT they gave once upon a time. And now we pretty much match what's over here, except for across the street, we have these warehouses. So let's go find warehouse. That's that one. Let's say we have 1, 2, 3 of those. He has his builder houses hidden behind that. And these are, storehouses for the food and stuff. So the storehouse, that would be under the farm or the cow here. Little red storehouse, there it is. And I have to rotate this in your head as well, all right? Here, here, here. Now we need some more roads. Oops, you see I goofed there. I thought I had picked the road, but I guess it wasn't doing the storehouses. It wasn't done with the storehouses. So I'm going to click the road again and do what I just did all over again. Now I'm starting to do the next little grid, which is another 3x4. I kind of like the 3x4 concept. That's pretty cool. Oh, this one he made a 2x4 instead of a 3x4. And he's got windmills and a large lumber yard, whatever they call the big woodshed there. So we have 4 windmills. Down on the farm here and get a windmill. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many do you have on the next side? You have 1, 2, and you skipped one and have a silo. And one you skipped is the lumber yard. Using the right term? Yeah, lumber yard right there. Now I got to redo that road because I messed it up. So here's my road again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And across the street from that, you got more windmills. You had one more silo in there. Of course, windmills have to be by a road. So here he has a road that like doesn't connect. Nothing wrong with that. It's just like I said, the more corners you have, the more turns the guys have to make, and I think it slows them down just a wee bit. So again, let me just summarize. I think we're pretty much done with this. We have down here a 3x4 grid, a 3x4 grid, and here we have a 2x4 grid and another one. And so what he's done here, let's just show one more thing. I put the pawns all in a row here. Well, there you go. I haven't done the whole city, obviously, but you get the idea, I think. Just to wrap up the whole thing, what I would do is 2 things. I would come down here, remember this copy command? I would, I don't know why you just can't do control copy, control C. I think it's copy does the same thing. Go back to Notepad++. Yeah, I'm going to save it here. I'll go ahead and format it like we did before. So plug in JSON viewer, format JSON. There we go. I'll just do file, save as, and I'll go ahead and just save it on my disk. Okay, so that's saved. Another concept you could use this for, like if you're doing mining, you could put your mines over here, and then you would make sure that, actually in that case, you don't want pawns next to your mine, but you want some kind of power that would get to them to provide the energy that they need. Now, in the real world, how long does it take to get your town looking like this? That's a tough question. The order that you do these things, that's where your strategy comes in it. So even when you have a good layout like this, it's how do you get from the starting position to this? And that is part of the fun and the challenge of learning. A lot of people have what they call their rush scenarios, like a wool rush or a grape rush or something like that to get their town started. But again, if you look at my video about the phases of the game, you need to have your 2 refineries down here set up before you go too much further. So to have the refineries, you need energy. So you're going to have a couple, or actually a couple, probably 3 or 4 or 5 windmills early in the game, maybe over here somewhere. But you also want them far apart enough from each other they don't slow each other down. And then you use the batteries to power your refineries when you're getting started. But you know in the future that you're going to come back and build the water pumps and the power plants here. But now you know exactly what they're going to go. So that should save you both time and your in-game money when you're doing that. So that's it. Go look at this website. I'll put the bigger letters up on the screen, put a link below the video. And I notice he actually keeps it pretty up to date because he's got peppermint on here and he has the candy store. And those were only added like in December, I think, of 2021. And now this video is in January 2022. And so I told you about myself a little living in North Dakota, but these pump jacks just reminded me. I used to live in Seminole, Texas. It's a town in West Texas, almost by the New Mexico border. And there were actually pump jacks in town. Like I think there was actually houses like next to them. So how would you like to live next to a pump jack? In the game, we try to separate things like that, but in the real world, They don't always do that because a lot of money coming out of those oil pumps. This is Neil. I'll see you in the next video.